Well, welcome to another episode of the Residential Developer Podcast. I'm the host. My name's Nathan Battishall, and today I want to bring a solo episode and I want to talk to you about becoming a problem solver. One thing that I find separates good investors and developers and people doing projects from people that aren't possibly so good at it is the ability to solve problems. Because the reality is, in this space, when it comes to doing residential developments and projects, you are continually coming up against problems. Now, we talk a lot about due diligence. We talk a lot about feasibility. We talk a lot about being smart in your site selection, in your site acquisition, which is key. And obviously, one of the big things you're looking to do is to avoid problems. You're looking to mitigate problems. You're looking to carry out a project that limits the amount of problems that arise. But anyone that's done enough projects and anyone that's been in this space for long enough will know and will understand that you will never, ever mitigate every single problem. Because the reality is we are living in an ever-changing society. We're living in suburbs that are ever-changing. We're living under policies that are ever-changing. We're living under people's opinion, people's notification and people's objections to types of developments that are ever-changing, which lead to many different problems. And we can come across problems all the way from a acquisition point of view. We can come across problems from a planning and approval and a design point of view. We can then come across problems from a construction point of view, and we can then hit problems from a resale or a selling point of view. So there's so many different journeys among a project. And you look at a project often will pivot from various different phases and stages, from obviously acquiring the site, purchasing the site, funding and financing the site, then executing the plans and the approvals on a site, then leading into construction, and then you've got to obviously sell the site or sell the end product if you're looking to sell. So there's a whole lot of different problems that can arise during the course of that project. And look, I think that this is one of the biggest reasons why a lot of people never pull the trigger. Little while ago, I spoke on the episode about the course junkies and people that go and do a lot of the education. They do a lot of the training, which is actually brilliant. And I actually am a huge advocate of people doing that training and going and educating themselves. But there's a lot of people, I think, they never pull the trigger on a project because they're either so risk adverse or they spend so much time trying to control a project, afraid and almost scared that problems may arise. And I think no matter how much you can micromanage or overmanage a project, you will always come across challenges and problems. And for me, I think problems are just a part of life, and we all view problems differently. I think some people view problems as a dead end. There's no coming back from this. There's no going forward. And I think last month we spoke about mindset. We spent a whole month just talking about mindset as an investor and as a developer. And I think mindset is a very big key thing. But I think also having your mindset of how you view problems is very, very key also, because I think I've met people that the moment they hit a problem, they develop such a level of worry and anxiety that it just is infectious, and it leaks from them onto everyone around them. It leaks onto their planning team. It leaks onto their real estate agent. It leaks onto their builder, their team that are carrying out the execution of the build. And as a result, then no one's happy in that space. Everyone's walking on eggshells, and it just creates a really unhappy environment. Whereas I think having a different mindset on problems, having a different mindset on challenges that you face during a project, having a mindset of actually, in every problem, there is always solutions. There's always an opportunity to pivot. There's always an opportunity to think outside the box. There's always an opportunity to look and research and study and educate yourself and look for means and look for ways in order to overcome the problem that you may face. And the reason I talk about this in this episode is because it's a very important element to have in your arsenal of tools when it comes to being successful in this space is being a problem solver, because you will always come across different problems. I've seen it where people have carried out so much due diligence on a site. They've had planners look at it. They've had designers look at it. They've forensically looked over contracts. They've had their solicitor look over it. And every now and then, little things can rear up that no one was able to pick, no one was able to see. And in that moment, you've just got to have a mindset and have an attitude and a determination that there is always a way forward. There is always a way through. Yes, you can make catastrophic mistakes and errors, but one thing I find is most people are pretty good at crossing off 90% of the concerns on a site, whether it be from a budgetary point of view or from a planning or a constraint point of view. It's just the little things that can creep up, the unexpected things that can come up that can sometimes bring you undone. You know, like I'm doing a project at the moment, and just a small project, and there was a post in this property and we wanted to get rid of it. And then wasn't until we realised partway through that the reason that post was there wasn't for the reasons we thought. We would have had, obviously, when you're looking at a property, you can't strip plasterboard back and, you know, and different things. But we then realised that there was a veranda, an old concrete veranda over this space. But we need that gone. And so obviously that adds some additional cost to your demolition costs and to your build costs. And then you've got to factor those things in. And the reality is you're always going to face different problems in doing projects and in doing developments. And I think it's just super key to have a mindset and an attitude of, for every problem, I'm going to bring a couple of solutions. That's always been the saying of mine. Even with my design team and in my design company. Like it's easy to spot a problem. Like anyone can spot a problem. It's easy to be Nancy negative and constantly be a problem spotter. But you know what? I think what's better is to be a solution bringer. And I've always had this mindset, and I'm big on this, is don't bring me the problem, bring me two solutions to overcome the problem. Because anyone can spot a problem. Anyone can get a problem and let that problem be the main focus and something that you'd spend all your time honing in on, focusing in on, and all of a sudden, it's like anything. The longer you look at something, the bigger it becomes. That's just the reality of life. You know, if you look at a problem for long enough, and if you spend your time stuck and stagnant looking at that problem for long enough, that problem, what could have been just a smallish problem, the longer you spend your time focused on it, consumed in it, worrying about it, thinking about it, just stuck in that stuck motion and space, the longer you spend in that time frame, I guess the bigger that problem becomes. And the bigger that problem becomes, you know, the more time you give it, the more energy you give it. And the challenge is the more stuck you become then in that problem, and you don't see a way forward and you don't see a way out. Whereas my thinking is that when you identify a problem, identify the problem, but begin to journal. And even if it's just getting a piece of paper out, if you strike a problem in your project, it could be at construction stage, it could be at a planning stage, just begin to journal out opportunities, ways to overcome that problem. Journal it out. If you've got a team, get your team together. If it's from a planning point of view, obviously work closely with your planning team, whether it be a planner or a designer or an architect. If it's at a construction stage, you've got your builder, you've got different people that you can lean on as well to go to the drawing board and come up with ideas. If you hit a problem, start to journal ideas, start to look at opportunities, start to look at ways you can get that problem and you can turn that problem into a solution. You can turn that problem into a pivot, into an opportunity. Like we've never had more technology at our fingertips. Like I often find when I hit a problem, I've been using Claude, which is like an offshoot of ChatGPT, and it's such an amazing AI tool. And even when you're stuck or you're stuck in a stagnant position in a particular element, it's amazing what you just by using something like AI now. And look, I get it; it's not for everyone, but I think this tool's there now at our disposal, and you can then tap into that tool to help you overcome a problem. And so much so, even just for this episode, I think let's make it interactive, and I'll even use this now as a tool to help us overcome a challenge. So let's just have a think about a challenge. So let's just say I'm going to jump into, let's do it on ChatGPT because not everyone has Claude. So I'm just going to put in ChatGPT. I've hit a roadblock on my duplex development. I have now discovered that I need to do a slower process as a DA versus the fast track CDC process. Sometimes it'll give you very obvious answers, but sometimes, like I said, sometimes we get so focused on the problem, we're so consumed on that problem, and we're so stuck on that problem that sometimes we just need ideas. And like the beauty is you've got this at your fingertips where you can just throw that idea out, and you can just break that down. You can open that up, and if it's not giving you the answers you need, you can obviously you can go further. Now, for me, generally I find it doesn't give me the answer, but sometimes it just unlocks my creative thinking. It unlocks my locked in mind. It unlocks that stagnant sort of frozen mentality I can have when I hit a problem or a challenge, because all of us are different. Some of us, we get stuck in a standstill when a problem arises because of our personality, our makeup. Others become high doers, and they become so consumed in overcoming that problem by doing, but they haven't taken the time to think and strategize what they should do. And then there's others who just get quite like the high feeler under stress or under tension, and they just become consumed in it and stressed out by it, and they can become emotional or in that space. So it's important to understand. But like just by putting that in, here's some initial thoughts. And I'm just doing this as a practical tool that you can use in your daily life when you hit problems or you just need to reactivate your creative thinking of how to do things. So it just says use the delay to pre-sell or secure buyers or renters. So positive pivot, use the extra time to line up a buyer or tenant for each side of the duplex while still in planning. This gives you confidence in the end value. Then it's just got a mindset shift. Instead of wasting time, you're de-risking the project, lining up income early, proving demand. Developers who pre-sell in slow markets win. So there's one idea. Then you've got re-optimize the design for higher valuation. Use the extra 6 months to explore additional tweaks to increase valuation, add storage, better landscaping, improve facade, study nook, separate entries for dual key potential. So there's some things there. And it's got build a killer marketing package during the DA wait. So start building on the full marketing strategy now, professional renders, floor plans, lifestyle branding, suburb stats, future projections. If selling, be best marketed in the duplex area. So mindset shift. You're not stalled. You're staging for a bigger launch. You'll be light years ahead of developers who scramble post-approval. And then there's a fourth one, negotiate with your financier now, not later. Approach your lender or broker now with a proactive strategy. Can you renegotiate interest-only terms, extend your loan buffer, or refinance before the draw peak down? And it's just got a final mindset boost. You're not behind, you're being refined. The delay isn't a detour, it's an invitation to build something stronger, smarter, and more profitable. You're not reacting, you're re-strategizing. That's exactly what separates amateurs from serious residential developers. So look, obviously you can then go down the rabbit hole and just continue to sort of brainstorm on that, and then obviously that can just help activate some thoughts. And I'm not saying those 4 answers, those 4 ideas there were the game changers, but it can just help reactivate some creative thinking, help give you a solutions mindset, a positive mindset, and obviously using tools and technology, leaning on your team, leaning on great people that you're in working on projects with. You can then look at ways to pivot, ways to do things, ways to move things forward. Like I'm doing a development at the moment, a land subdivision, and the application is going on a lot longer than I would have hoped. The market, has been a little bit flat in that land subdivision space. So we're facing a few problems. Is a slow DA for the land subdivision, and obviously a bit of a slower market in that land subdivision space. So for us, that's a problem, and you can get stuck and bogged down in it. You can just really, really sort of get to that point of worrying yourself sick. And for us, we've obviously that particular site, we've got it under option. So we don't have finance on it, which is great, obviously for holding costs. So for me, what it enabled us to do was to say, okay, what do we need to do? How can we move this along? And so for us, what we were able to do was to have a chat with the vendors, talk about the scenario, talk about some of the delays we're having, because we got this off market directly with our vendor. We're able to talk with them directly and be able to renegotiate an extension on our option and moving that option further down the track, which buys us time, because for us, our problem was delays in our DA and a tricky market. So the solution was to move to buy ourselves some more time. So we were able to strategize some ways maybe to release a little bit of money now, give a little bit more money to the vendor on the back end for granting us that extension. And you can work through little elements like that. So that for me, that was a really prime example of how to bring a solution to a problem in that type of a planning sense. Now, you obviously can't do that on every type of deal. There's some deals you've already settled on. It's very hard to option smaller development projects. But there are ways you can do things. You can often look at ways to extend things out. There's ways you can pivot. There's ways you can shift. There's ways you can change. Like we had a client recently who the plan was to knock down the house, build 3 townhouses. Now, market a little bit tricky. They had a few issues in terms of their borrowing ability and capacity. So we had to pivot. We had to shift. Now, we had a DA in council for that project. Yes, they'd spent some money on the plans and all that sort of thing, but it was going to be likely that it was just not going to be viable for them in their current position because some changes took place. So what we were able to do, go back to the drawing board, we were able to pivot that project and identify that the best thing for them was to lower a little bit of risk. They've got a lower borrowing capacity. So the plan was then, okay, let's go back to the drawing board, let's keep the house and then put one more house on there. So all of a sudden they're able to pivot and shift, bring solutions and overcome challenges and overcome problems from that perspective. And the reality is you will always face problems. You will always face challenges. You will always face hurdles and things that you need to overcome. And I think for a lot of people, what happens when problems come, people really can find it quite difficult. And I just want to go into probably 3 of the main personalities. And look, I don't prove to be an expert in understanding people's makeup and people's personalities, but I have done a little bit of my own personal study and my own, I guess, even understanding myself, understanding my wife and understanding our kids, and then obviously understanding team and people we work with is key. So I find that I call them these type things, and they've got all different names. But for me, you've generally got like a high doer, a thinker, and a feeler. Now, a lot of people can have a combination of both. Now, all of us have a personality type. Now, you might be a doer, you might be a thinker, you might be a feeler. Now, a lot of people have a combination of both. They could be doer, feeler. They could be doer, thinker. They could be thinker, feeler. They could be, doer, thinker. But you'll find a lot of people, and I find a lot of developers in terms of their personality, people doing projects, have quite a bit of doer. I find there's a lot less people in this space that are high thinkers, because what happens, they'll overthink a project and they'll talk themselves out of it. But I do see a lot of thinkers partnered up with a high doer. Quite often I see that. But often I also see some developers, and unfortunately you see some developers who struggle a bit where they've got high feeler, because they're very easily emotionally attached to a site, and often don't take the time to look at it and strategize it. So the important thing is understanding your wiring and your makeup and your personality, because all of our personalities will bring us strengths, but it'll also bring some areas, I don't really so much call it weaknesses, but just areas of blind spots where we can be susceptible to maybe having a blind spot. Like for me, I'm probably high doer with a little bit of feeler, but definitely high doer. And you'll find a lot of high doers are often quite entrepreneurial. They're generally quite visionary. They got that real go-get-it attitude. But at times, a lot of high doers have to, especially if someone's high doer and very low feeler, or very low thinker, they can really just steamroll people. They can steamroll projects. So it's important to understand that. But there's also you've got your personality type, but you've got your temperament under stress, or when the problems come, like we're talking about today. All of us have different tendencies and ways of reacting to problems. Now, just because your personality is a high doer doesn't necessarily mean that you're a high doer under stress. See, all of us revert to different temperaments under stress, under strain, under exertion, under when the problem arises. We all have different tendencies. See, I go into a bit of a thinker-feeler mode when the stress comes, when the challenge comes, when the problem comes. So I'm a high doer, my personality type, so which enables me to really push ahead, take ground, be able to really move into opportunities and spot opportunities and take on opportunities. But one of my challenges can be, and one of my blind spots can be, when I face problems, when I face adversity and challenges, when it comes to a project, I can go into a thinker-feeler. You'll often find a thinker is very slow to move, okay? Thinkers generally spend time, especially as a personality, a thinker and a temperament. A thinker will spend a lot of time mulling things over, weighing up pros and cons, cross-checking spreadsheets. They'll be spending a lot of time, doing a lot of due diligence, a lot of research, and very important. Thinkers make really, really good team members when it comes to doing developments. At times they need a bit of a nudge because they overthink a project and they don't pull it off. But you'll find when a thinker pulls the trigger on a project, like a good high thinker, it generally stacks up pretty well because they've weighed up so many elements of it and they've really, they've dotted the I's and crossed the T's, and you'll find the projects go well. But see, for me, in my temperament, I'm a high doer, personality, but then under stress, when a problem arises, my personality shifts from a high doer to a thinker-feeler. Now, the thinker can start to think about it, overthink it, analyze it, but then the feeler can start to just, you feel overwhelmed, you feel overcome, you can feel defeated. So when you understand your temperament, when a problem comes, what it enables you to do, it enables you to firstly understand how you react to these things, but it also helps to understand the type of people that you need in your corner and that you need around you when a problem arises. So for me, when a problem arises, I can sometimes get a bit like a deer in a headlight, and I'm just going, how am I going to overcome this? So I've got better and better over the years, especially once I started to understand my temperament. I got a lot better at understanding how I actually face a problem. But like I can become a deer in a headlight, and the challenge can be when you're like a deer in a headlight, you can then mold for too long over a problem rather than get some solutions, weigh it up. Yes, you've got to, at the end of the day, you've got to be true to your temperament, but understand that temperament under pressure is reverting to that place. Yes, it's a real, it's a real element, but I need to understand that, hey, I can't sit on this problem forever. I've got to come up with a solution. I've got to come up with some solutions for this problem, action it, and then push ahead. Yes, I do need to take some time to think about it, to weigh it up. Yes, I've got to address the fact that, hey, I'm feeling crap about this problem, all the different things that can arise. And then you're able to just take a step back. Okay, this is what's going on, navigate it, and then push ahead. Now, you've got the other temperaments, like some people can just go into high doer mode. So when a problem comes, they literally just run themselves into the ground, just making it work, making it happen. But the problem is the danger can be in that space is they haven't taken the time to look at their surroundings, to think about the problem, to maybe get some advice on the problem. They've just literally just gone, okay, I'm in fixer mode. Now, look, often they can wing it. They can often win in that situation. But the danger can be is that they can go so heavily into that doer mode that under pressure, under strain, under stress, that they just literally do, and don't take the time to actually think about, is that the right solution? Is that the right pivot? And then all of a sudden they can just go straight into it and then have not weighed up the cost of that solution, or possibly not weighed up the other problems that could arise down the track from that solution. And that's why it is often important for a high doer to have someone in their corner who's a bit of a thinker, or someone who can just take a step back, ask some questions. Have you considered this? Have you thought of this? Have you weighed this decision up? Have you weighed up this, and this problem that could arise by just doing that? And that can be the danger with the high doer in under stress, is they can steamroll people and they can just push so far ahead without actually, really just looking at the pros and cons. And then you've got like more of a feeler. A high feeler can just literally get into that mode of just, when a problem comes, they can just get themselves into a state where they think the whole thing's dead in the water. They just get themselves so worked up and so anxious and so stressed and so emotional, or so, that they start to feel like a failure, or they can start to feel there's no way out, and they can really sort of, beat themselves up and get into that space. And that's where it's important to know how you're wired. Whereas a high thinker can literally, like I've got a fair bit of thinker under stress. So I get that element. But like someone who's just fully thinker under stress, often you'll find that they're like frozen in time. They're frozen, stuck. They don't see a way forward. And then the danger can be is when they've got people in their corner. It could be a designer or a planner. It could be a builder. It could be someone at a different part of the journey, or even a life partner who's bringing ideas, and they're then over-analysing it all, and they're weighing it up, and they're just, they're really overthinking so many elements of it. And the longer they're thinking about it, they're then thinking about other problems that arise, and the problems to that problem, and the problems to that problem's problem. And all of a sudden they're just down this rabbit hole of like analysing and thinking. And the more they're doing that, the more stuck they're becoming. And like I shared earlier, you can spend that time just so fixated on that problem that what was a 20-cent piece has all of a sudden become, the size of a dartboard, and it's just staring you in the face. And when it takes up your whole eyesight and your whole, vision, you can't see past that problem. You can't see the horizon behind you. You can't see the sun behind you. You can't see the opportunities behind that problem. And that's where often, in my own mind, sometimes I've just got to take a step back, or a couple of steps back, and just have a macro perspective. And often when you do that, you're able to take your eye off that problem, and you start to put your eye on the solution. You start to put your eye on the opportunity. You start to put your eyes on, the way forward and the opportunity. So I think it's very key to, for any investor or developer or someone doing projects, if you want to get good at this, you need to also understand how do you navigate problems? How do you attack problems? What's your temperament like when problems strike? Because it's important to know that, because see, the more you understand you, the more you'll understand how you can actually overcome that problem and that situation. And that's where I find a lot of people get stuck, because they get so stuck in their head. Their temperament changes under stress and under pressure often. Some people are the same in both. But I think it's important to really get a good grasp and understanding of that, because what it will enable you to do is when problems come, you're able to be solution focused, you're able to weigh things up, you're able to look at opportunities to pivot, opportunities to push through that situation, whether it be an exit strategy or whether it be changing a slight pivot or direction in what you're doing, bringing some people to the table, coming up with ideas so that you can navigate forward. And you've probably heard me, anyone who listens to this podcast will understand that I talk about this a lot, because I want to improve the mentality of people in this industry, because I've just found that often it's a very highly strung, stressed out environment. Doesn't so much need to be. I think a lot of it can be if we do a lot of self-work, if we do a lot of mindset work, if we do a lot of work on how we can actually overcome things, how we can actually have a solution-bringing positive mindset on how to navigate things, I think we can alleviate some of those challenges. So look, I hope you've enjoyed this episode. It was a shorter episode this week. I thought it was a good lead up off the back of our month of mindset that we just did. Because for me, I just think we're facing an industry now where there's never been more challenges from a planning and a red tape point of view, and there's never been more challenges, I think, from a construction, a compliance, and a building regulated point of view. And that will lead to challenges, that will lead to problems, but let's not be doom and gloom about it, because the reality is you have an opportunity in your space, in your sphere, while everyone else is so fixated on how hard it is and the problems. Just make a decision that I'm going to be that 1% who is not going to be so fixated on the problem. I'm going to be solution focused. I'm going to be a solution bringer. And I'm telling you now, we're going to see some people drop like flies in this space over the coming years because of, let's face it, red tape's not going to get easier. It's only going to get more and more. I was talking to someone the other day. It's an interesting day we live in where it costs more money for the red tape from a planning, a design, and approval point of view for something as simple as a 3x6 shed or a 3x3 shed. It's more expensive to get the approvals than to actually build the thing. And that's just the reality we face now. So I just think the people who they're not going to sit there and just whinge about it. Yes, have your moment. We always have banter in our office about the frustrations around these things. But you know what? We can't spend our days and our time fixated and focused on what we cannot change. We have to make a decision that, you know what? I'm going to be that 1% who has a big mindset, who has a positive mindset, who has a solution-bringing mindset. And whatever I do that, straight away, my competitors or other people in the industry, while they're focused and fixated and bogged down and, they're frozen up by problems, I'm pushing ahead, I'm moving ahead, I'm looking at opportunities, I'm looking at the problems, yes, but I'm looking at solutions on how to overcome those problems so that I can be the best of the best of the best in my field and in my sphere and in my niche and in my sphere that I want to tackle when it comes to projects. So look, I hope this episode's been enjoyable. Again, as I always say, don't forget to share, subscribe, like. If there's anyone you know that's maybe going through some challenges or some problems, I encourage you to put this episode in their hands, even if it just encourages one person who's who's facing some adversity in their project or in their development at the moment. I hope this episode will give you a bit of hope. It'll give you some encouragement to keep pushing ahead and keep pushing forward. And I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I'll see you next week.